Welcome to Series 2 of the Productivity for Profit podcast. In this second series, we'll be talking about the mindset behind being productive. Knowing the tools and techniques that increase and maintain our effectiveness are so valuable, and it's our mindset that determines just how powerful they are. So I'm bringing in some very special guests to discuss an array of mindset topics, from how we speak to ourselves, our money mindset, holistic therapies, vibrational energy, and more, so that we can maximize our favorite techniques and take our productivity to a new level. Welcome to the second episode in our Productivity Mindset series. Today we're exploring how our subconscious patterns stop us from thriving financially. There are action steps that we want to take in our quest to grow our profit, but embedded beliefs from our past can create an obstacle that we're not even aware is holding us back. My special guest, Denise Mortimer, is here to unravel and demystify what's happening behind the scenes on a subconscious level. Denise's mission is to help us master our mindset, strengthen our emotional intelligence, build our positive self-image, and clear subconscious blocks. She works with coaches, healing practitioners, and therapists, and today she's here to help us to identify what could be holding us back from realizing the financial potential within us. Welcome to the Productivity for Profit podcast, Denise. This is a fascinating subject, and it's something that impacts us all, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's every single person on the planet has a relationship with money somewhere along the way.
What comes up for people when they work with you? What problems do they have?
A majority of people, it's a scarcity. It's a lack issue. They've been brought up with fear around money, worrying that if they spend it, it will never come back, that they have to hold on to what they've got, that they don't believe any more is coming. They're afraid to charge certain things because it may be a self-image thing as well, that they don't feel that they're worthy of charging that amount of money. So it ends up blocking people in so many ways. But there's another end of the spectrum, which is much more rare, where I've had people who've come from a family of plenty, and there's guilt and shame around having too much because they had more than their friends. So they end up with all sorts of complexes around money because they had too much. So no matter how you slice it, we're all stuffed.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we don't just have this story of lack around money. We have it about the environment. We have it about so many things, don't we? That everything is a finite resource. It's all going to run out. But of course, money isn't, because we don't have the same pot of money in the world that we had 100 years ago or 200 years ago. We have economies that grow, but we're brought up with these beliefs set to protect us. So don't have too many credit cards, don't go into debt, don't do all these things around money. And they suit better someone who's got a fixed income, don't they? But when you're in this entrepreneurial world, it's actually a huge block because we're so risk averse that we won't even contemplate investment and things like that.
That's such an interesting point, because we do all need to make an investment in ourselves somewhere along the way, because as entrepreneurs, we're offering services to people, whether they're products or services. We're asking people to invest money in us, and we need to be willing to take that action ourselves. We need to be the leader, to go first, to say, look, I know that it's important to make this investment, and I wouldn't ask you what I wouldn't do for myself. And it becomes, you have to be willing to go boldly, go down a path that is unfamiliar to you, because you have to break out of your familial, ancestral patterns of scarcity that you may be running.
Yeah, I know that I've got beliefs that I've carried with me since childhood that, again, were taught to me to protect me, but in fact, I need to almost ignore in order to take my business from where it is now to that next level, to invest in people, services, products that will take me, carefully considered, of course. We're not talking about spending willy-nilly. We're talking about being able to consider new options, new opportunities, because we miss opportunities as well, don't we? If we're so closed off to investing or to spending, that we're going to miss out on, a future that we actually want, but we can't get if we don't open our minds.
And herein lies the problem, that we are, and I'm talking a sweeping generalization, we are indoctrinated to believe that we are a slave to money, and that money dictates. When you walk around in your life and you overhear conversations, and you'll hear people saying, like, I can't do that, I haven't got the money. How common is that statement? We've become a slave to it. Our lives are dictated by whether we have it or not, and the belief as to whether you can get it or not. And so I can't afford it. There's no money to do that. And it becomes a massive limitation. And there's a lot of shame about talking about money. Like, certainly when I grew up in America, it was like, oh, it's vulgar to talk about money. Maybe it's vulgar to brag about money. Like, I got my, so much money and so much more than you've got kind of thing. But let's have open conversations about money. It is essential. People listening to this need money to have the resources, to have the Wi-Fi or the 5G, whatever, to listen. And they need a device to listen, and they need clothes to wear, and they need food to eat. Every single thing requires us to have money, and we need to take the stigma out of talking about money, but talking about it in a healthier way and giving people permission to grow a healthier mindset around what it means to have money, and that you can have it and you don't have to be ashamed about having it or feel greedy. Maybe it's a bit sexist, but a lot of women will be, oh, as long as I just have enough. And when you shift your paradigm and realize that we live in a land of plenty, you can have more than just enough. Like, if you're raising kids and you're a single mama and you're raising kids, wouldn't it be wonderful if you had more than enough so that you didn't have to think about whether your kid could go on a school trip or whether your car was running to get them to school? Like, we can live in a land of plenty if we choose to live in a land of plenty. Many choose to live in a land of just enough will do, because I don't want to be greedy.
Yeah. We have this impression, don't we, of what a wealthy person looks like, what sort of characteristics they have, the way they behave. And it doesn't have to be that, because like so many things, it's all about choices. We can choose what to do with that wealth. We don't have to choose to be the person that is the stereotypical wealthily, miserly, mean. And even we see it on TV, we see it in characters that we see on every movie, all those cliches. Because we see it so often, it becomes a belief. So it's not only things that we've grown up hearing from our parents, but it's what we hear on the news. It's the characters we see in books and on TV, because they just keep compounding this impression that wealth equals greed and that wealthy people are not good people. But surely having more money gives us more choices, and we can choose to do fantastic things for our family. We can choose to invest, to donate. There's a huge array of things we do, and we're not going to suddenly become a bad person. If we're a bad person, it will compound who we are. If we're a good person, it will compound who we are.
That is so beautifully put. And money is an amplifier. Like, if anyone listening to this has ever had alcohol, you know that alcohol amplifies your mood. So if you're down, you'll feel more down. If you're happy, you'll feel more happy. Money is an amplifier too. If you were a greedy, selfish person trying to, get one over on the next person, you're going to do that to a larger degree when you have more money. If you're a kind, generous, good-hearted person acting in the highest interest of everybody on the planet, it's going to be amplified when you have more money. So we need to dispel these myths. And I speak to a lot of people all over the world, and there are so many limitations that it doesn't matter what culture people are coming from, that there's a view that people who have money, this is a huge, huge, huge belief that they've done something untoward to get that money, and they must be bad people. And as you say, it gets reinforced through the media, and it's just it just makes you think, well, I don't want money because it's going to make me a bad person. And even like, I'm not a religious person, but in biblical terms, they say it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to go to heaven. And it's not that money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money over everything else that's the root of all evil. It's actually the lack of money that's the root of all evil. Because when you don't have money, we become desperate. Not you personally, but like when people don't have money, they become desperate and they resort to things like robbing other people's houses or shoplifting from shops. So the lack of money is the root of all evil.
And you were talking about people making choices. So when they have money and they say, I can't afford. But so often they are saying no to one thing, but yes to something else. And it could be something that is best in their future. It's not going to be something that will project them forwards or get them closer to their goals. So I'm talking about, for example, if somebody said, this piece of software would automate your business and would take a lot of work off your plate so you can be in your zone of genius and provide your service. I can't afford that, but I'm going to go out to dinner every weekend. And yes, that's a memory, but if you're doing it every weekend, it's money that is not working towards your future. So often when people are given an opportunity, they will have this scarcity belief. But if they actually looked at what they're doing with their money, they could. It would just be about different choices.
Absolutely. And that's such an important point as well, because people will tell you that they can't afford something that they're unaccustomed to affording. And so what they're saying is like, I'm not willing to review where I'm spending my money because it would require me to make some lifestyle choices that I might not want to make. And right now I prefer to go out for the dinners than to face the reality that this piece of software is going to help my business. And that same person is probably waiting for some windfall to come along for them to afford that software. But if the windfall came along, there's probably other things they would use that money on. So it's so fascinating how people respond around money and whether they give themselves permission to think differently and open up new opportunities, or whether they stay absolutely wedded to their former beliefs. We're committed. I'm in this for life with this belief.
It's staying in your comfort zone, isn't it? It's a bit like when you are coming back to productivity, when you're living the same routine day after day, it's habitual, isn't it? A lot of our life is habitual. We're doing the same things, thinking the same things, saying the same things over and over because it's in our comfort zone. But when we want to break out of that, we have to start questioning some of the things that we're doing, and we have to look behind the scenes. Similarly with money, we do live a certain way. We do have a certain income level. It's all within our comfort zone. So sometimes we have to question, well, is this serving me? Is it going to get me to where I want to be? Do I need to do something different?
This is actually opening up a deeper question. I just got off a call with a client a little while ago, and we were talking about, whilst there are people who are reluctant to spend money on themselves, there's also a bit of a toxic and unsavory element, certainly in the online world, where there's marketing that understands that at the core of everyone is, I'm not good enough. And so the marketing really hits on the point of I'm not good enough. And therefore people go and buy things that they think are outside of themselves. They look for solutions outside of themselves. They look like someone else is succeeding at that. And because they're doing so well and they're telling the whole world about it, I'm going to go and buy that too. I want to be part of that too. There's a whole point of people being afraid to spend money, but then now there's a whole other toxic element of people who can be not coerced is the wrong word, because they willingly give their money, but they invest their money in something that they think is going to provide a solution when ultimately the solution comes from within them.
Exactly. So they've got this hope, haven't they, that because we're told, and there is a truth to the fact that if you see how someone else has done it before you, You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to do it all yourself. But if we try to put someone else's blueprint and adopt that completely, that person, yes, they found what worked for them, but we're somebody different. We have different emotions. We have different transferable skills ourselves. We have different experiences, different past careers. So as much as there's something important in what they have to say, if we are told, do it my way, I've done it all before, and we try to adopt that wholly, what we often find is that it doesn't work for us because we don't want to do it that way. We don't work that way. So working with somebody who listens to you, sees you, and wants to hear what you have to say and how you work and adapt what their expertise to you as an individual, that is much more valuable than trying to take someone else's blueprint as a whole and take it on yourself, isn't it? Because yes, we can learn from other people, but we are individuals. We're not robots.
Exactly. And the problem arises when there is that lack of self-trust. So you get people. So this is the kind of thing that happens. People are afraid to spend money on themselves, but they hear everyone in the online world going, you need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in yourself. So they find someone who speaks to their pain point, who promises them a solution. They spend money on the solution. They don't get the result that they want. And they end up bitter and twisted and going back to, see, I should have never spent money on that. So it then perpetuates the cycle instead of learning the lesson. And this is the biggest piece of advice I would give to anybody who's looking at investing in themselves. Do your due diligence. Check them out. Don't just go, here's my money, because you did some great marketing campaign and you used some buzzwords and you gave me the smoke and mirrors telling me how great everything is. Do your due diligence. That's the biggest gift you can give yourself. And know that you're investing in someone that from an intuitive level feels really good, from a practical level feels really good, and from a financial level feels really good, because there will be people who will pay whatever level you want to charge. If you're the person charging, there's going to be people at all different levels, and you have to make the choice for yourself. What's the right level of your investment?
When we again go back to productivity and money, the two have to go together, don't they? Because we can buy a course, we can work with someone, but money is the tool to access that. But we still need to be productive. We still need to do the work. Just handing over cash is not going to make magic happen. We've then got to work with that person and put in the effort and set time aside to do that work on ourselves or on the skill set, whatever it is we're working on, don't we? Because I think sometimes we think, well, if I just hand over the cash, that's problem solved. But it's not that simple.
I had a client who basically thought by handing me the money, and my confession is this was in early days of my business. I would like to think that I would not work with a client like that in this day and age now. But at the time, she just thought handing me over the money was my responsibility to make her business a success. And I think that's what you're saying, that it's like, here, take my money and make me a star, make me successful. But it still requires the work, yes. So there's something about an investment, whatever level it's at, it does something to you energetically, because it forces you to, and I say force in the nicest possible way, it forces you to upgrade where you currently are. So like I said, do your due diligence and make sure that you're identifying someone that feels really good for you to work with. You know that it's, the right next step for you. If I could turn back the clock, I probably would still make the same mistakes. And I wouldn't necessarily say they were mistakes, but I would take more care. I would do more due diligence before I invested, because I've invested significant sums of money, but I never walked away from it feeling resentful and angry, because I was like, okay, well, what did I learn from there? And I would encourage people to be thinking like that. And you do upgrade. Something in you energetically shifts when you part with money and you make that statement to I know it gets a bit airy fairy here, but when you make that statement to the universe that, I'm investing in myself, I'm making this investment, and it does tend to come back to you, but it does take bold moves at times, and it requires you coming out of your comfort zone. And this is really, really, really important. Really, don't buy from a place of fear. That's the person throwing money at you saying, solve my problems. Buy from a place of, I truly believe with every fiber of my being that this solution is going to be the next rung on the ladder, not the one and only solution I'm ever going to need till the end of my days, but this is the next rung on the ladder, and it feels so good to make this investment. When you buy from fear, you're never going to get a great outcome.
There's 2 points there. I think it's when we start in our business, we want to make quantum leaps, don't we? But sometimes we need to just take the next step, especially when we are new to running our own business. It's about taking that next step. So investing in that next step, get to that step, the next step. Because one of the things that you learn when you start to run your own business is that each stage is different. You are doing and thinking differently at each stage of your business as you grow and to the next level and the next level. So you're not just doing the same thing. You would just end up plateauing. So at each stage, you're thinking of what comes next, what comes next. And so you've got to invest in different people to help you automate more or outsource or whatever it happens to be. You do different things at different stages of your business development.
Absolutely. And, you use the word quantum leap there. And there seems to be a real buzz around that online at the moment. It's like your quantum leap, your quantum leap, your quantum leap. And what you find when you pull back the curtains is that those quantum leaps in almost every case is a next natural step rather than that massive leap that it appears to be. Like overnight success takes years.
Yeah.
Now there are some people who have these like enormous leaps in their income when they make an investment somewhere along the way. But know this as well, that with that sort of leap, also it's like a lottery winner. Like they're not emotionally prepared to deal with that quantity of money. So we are given the next steps that we can manage. It's not like there's like some God or something. You can only have this much, but it's what we know that we can energetically deal with, the next step that we can deal with, because anything more than that is going to be like the lottery winner who ends up, they've worked all their life and suddenly they don't have to work. And then they're like, I don't want to go out anymore because everyone thinks the drinks are on me. And I can't even hang around with the same people anymore because we don't keep the same company. When you grow a little bit more incrementally, which as I said, if you look at people, you'll find that the increments often lead to that, what appears as overnight success. But having that overnight success is rare. And in all honesty, my clients, I've seen phenomenal shifts in income levels in a very short period of time, sometimes overnight. But it comes down to where we were talking about at the beginning about the subconscious patterning. And may I touch on this subject now? The subconscious, this is now my stuff that just completely turns me on. We've all got this pattern. We've all started out with, parents with the best of intentions, maybe some parents even with not even the best of intentions, but we cannot not be a product of our upbringing. So we get shaped by them. We get all these beliefs ingrained into our psyche. So you can say it's negative emotions, limiting beliefs stuck at a cellular level, stuck in your energetic field, in your DNA, call it what you want, but it ends up with you. And energetically, it affects your frequency. And if it's not woo-woo to talk about frequency, it's physics. We're all just vibrating energy, and anyone can look that up at, who's thinking, who is this crazy woman talking about energy and frequency? And when you have a low level emotion that you would have taken on board at a young age, it becomes a frequency within you that it's like your baseline, your core frequency.
What sort of emotions? Tell me some of those emotions. Things like fear, are we talking about?
The low level emotions that you're talking about are guilt, shame, fear, helplessness, hopelessness. Those are like, there's a scale called the map of consciousness. And at the lowest end, you've got those, like the lowest vibrating emotion are shame and guilt. they are the lowest on the scale. And then when you've got that stuck in your energetic field, whatever that means to you, in your cells, in your mind, in your DNA, in your ancestral, in your Akashic record, whatever, it's somehow with you, this energy that is going to be a vibrational, like it's going to be almost like your baseline. So you can feel really good, you can dance and feel really good, but then you're going to drop back down to what your core level is. And what happens when I work with clients at a subconscious level is when we go to the root cause, because there will be a time when you didn't believe bad things about money. So we go to the time when you made the decision about believing something bad about money, and we clear it. And it's like a jet wash, like you're jet washing this emotion out of your system. And when you come out of this process, you feel like this sounds a bit biblical, you feel like you've been reborn, because you're no longer holding on to that frequency. And this is why things like willpower don't work, because willpower is taking your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, and your conscious mind, which is like the size of a pea, and your subconscious mind is like the size of the planet Earth. And your conscious mind is going, I'm going to control you. But the subconscious mind is the master. So when you are in cahoots, when your conscious and subconscious are working in harmony, then you become abundant. Then you invite unlimited supply of financial success into your life in many and various ways. Then you create exactly what you want. And this is where so many people are missing a trick. They're looking for a financial solution outside of themselves, and it's inside of themselves.
Because a lot of people have been programmed this way since childhood. They live with it all the time, and nothing has really made them aware that they're carrying this around with them every day. Sometimes we become aware because we realize we're being blocked and we're not making progress the way we want to. But other people, nothing has really caused them to question. So what do you do to help people to identify where this started for them?
It's a process. It's a hypnotic process where you do a regression to go back to that point. So there needs to be a few things in place in order for that to be a successful process. Number one, the person has to be willing and prepared to undergo hypnosis. Two, they need to have a trust with the practitioner, whether it's me or somebody else. And three, they need to allow themselves to be led by the hypnotherapist into that old emotion. They need to be willing to experience. It's not pretty because people end up crying, and it's, you've got to go there to clear it. But once it's cleared, you don't have to go back there again. Like, if you do it once, you do it well. You don't have to go back there. And that jet wash for the soul can have a really profound and long-term impact on your overall well-being.
Because it actually affects other areas of life, doesn't it? Things like your self-worth. These ideas around money are not isolated from our other emotions, are they? They can affect us outside of money. So even if it's a money belief, it's often tied up to your self-worth and other emotions. So when you do this work, this clearing work, it can also affect other areas of your life, can't it?
Most definitely, because it comes down to this idea of how you do anything is how you do everything. Everything in your life is going to be influenced by whatever your baseline vibration is. So someone who's struggling with money may also find that they're just struggling in the same way in other areas of their life. What fascinates me about doing the regression work with people is that when you go and you find that root cause of when that person made that decision, and then you ask them, what did you begin to believe at that moment? And remember, this is done under a very intense one-to-one. You're in good rapport. The person's in a hypnotic state. What did you begin to believe right there and then? And they'll say something like, I believed that money was bad because it made my parents fight, and I didn't want them to fight. And so I just decided I didn't want any money. And then I asked the question, the magic question, how is that showing up in your life now? And it's like, OMG. it's like the biggest light bulb moment. Like I'm living something that I learned at 5 years old, and I've been living with it for 45 years now, or, whatever period of time. But that light bulb moment of, oh my God, I've been carrying this around forever. And we do a number of regressions to like clear it, as, it's not just one jet wash. We do like a few jet washes under hypnosis. And this is why it's so like, the results are so profound and so incredible, because they get to recognize the impact that it's had on their life up to this point. And then they have a choice. Do I want to let go of it? Do I want to hold on to it? And interestingly enough, Libby, I've had people say to me, I don't know if I'm ready to let go of it, because they don't know who they're going to be at the other end. And so I've been like, okay, so what about if you let go of it for a week? Can we try a week without it? And they'll, yeah, okay. And then they try, and then they go, no, I'm not going back. Because they don't know who they're going to be without that belief that I haven't got enough money, or that I'm not worthy of love, or I can't go for that job, or I'll never lose the weight, or whatever the limiting belief is, because it's all going to come back to the same lack of worthiness somewhere along the way.
So how they identify themselves, isn't it? These are some of the labels they've lived with all their life. And some of these beliefs are tied up with that. And suddenly to think, partly I don't know who I am without that, but also I don't know how to be this other person. So in reality, I guess it's a natural process, but the unknown can be scary.
Well, because one of our greatest requirements as a human is to be accepted. And then if you're suddenly thinking like, well, if I believe something different from the tribe that surrounds me, maybe I won't be accepted anymore. And that becomes a scary proposition for people, which is why it's easier to just let other people influence you. One of the biggest crimes against humanity is that we think what other people think about us and our lives matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I know some labels that I've carried around because I was known as, the ditzy one, or the one who's always late, or, which is why I'm a productivity person, because I had to break these beliefs.
Yes.
Change the story, because that was who I had become to believe I was. And I believed myself. You'll never be somebody who would work in an office and be corporate. Well, I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't actually had an opportunity that came along that I took that proved otherwise. But I still have family members saying, can't believe that you in sales. And, they're still saying this because they still think of me as that child. And I'm not that child anymore.
Yeah, yes. And our pain becomes our power as well. And this is the case with so many people. And this is another really important matter. It's not discounting. It's not saying, oh, I wish all those terrible things never happened to me as a child, because those things become your transformation into the person that you eventually become. But, and here's the big but, when you decide you don't need to hold on to it anymore, that's when, big change happens. Let it shape you. Let it help you become the person you're meant to be, but let it go when it no longer serves you. When you recognize it as a limitation, you can say, thank you for the service you've done for me over the years, but now it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we can also recognize not only that we experienced it as a child, but that we also find ourselves doing the same thing to our own children. And because we want to protect them, we tell them certain things, but actually it's a cyclical thing. It just happens. You learn certain things in your childhood that are meant to protect you. Sometimes, not always. Some things are, negative, but often they come from a positive place and they shape us, and we end up doing the same to our children because we just want to wrap them up. We just want to protect them and keep them safe. But in reality, when they become adults, it doesn't necessarily serve them.
One of my favorite things to say is our only real job as an adult is to decondition ourselves from the beliefs that we were brought up with that no longer serve us. And if we choose to keep our families intact while doing that, because it doesn't always work that way, that when you grow, sometimes your family doesn't come along for the journey. But those who wish to keep their families intact, that you can grow into the person you're meant to be and keep your family intact and not perpetuate the generational limitations that you can say no more from this moment on.
That brings up the thought that when you are thinking about these possibilities where you are getting rid of these past beliefs and you're choosing who to work with or whatever the next step is, and you're listening to your intuition about, is this the right person? Is this the right thing to do? Am I willing to step into a new future? Sometimes we want to listen to our intuition because our intuition will guide us. But sometimes when our intuition says no, that's actually fear, isn't it, of the unknown. So it's sometimes difficult to know, is this my intuition saying to me this is not right for me, or is it my fear that's getting in the way because this is a big step and I'm not quite ready for it?
And that's an interesting point to make, the differentiation between whether it's intuition or whether it's fear. And I think sometimes and I don't have a definitive answer for how to make that distinction, but I would say that sometimes we make choices that we can't explain, and those are more intuition. Like sometimes when you just do something, you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing that. But we feel like we need to explain it to people. I just don't know why I'm doing that, but it just feels like the right decision to make for me. Most people don't trust themselves to give themselves permission to say, I'm going to make this decision. I don't know where it's going, but I'm going to trust myself to know that it's right.
Yeah, we're always trying to keep ourselves safe, aren't we? It's this fight or flight thing. Anything that seems a bit scary, we tend to back off and try to protect ourselves. But sometimes that unknown is where the next big opportunity is, isn't it? And if we living in fear, we might not see those opportunities.
Yes. And in fact, as I said, I don't have a definitive way to determine whether it's fear or intuition. And what I would say is the more deep internal work that you do, the more you're going to be able to make the distinction. Because when you've cleared emotion and you know what it feels like to be on the other side of that, you're going to be able to be clear that, oh, this is a fear-based decision. This is an intuitive-based decision. But I think it starts with examining, doing that internal clearing in the first instance.
It's about creating space, isn't it? Because when we are on the treadmill of life and we're like a hamster on a hamster wheel and we're just doing every day, going through the motions, and day in, day out is the same, we don't have that mind space to slow down, to be able to see those opportunities and to open ourselves up to something new. So sometimes it's about timing as well. If we do that work, then after we've done some of that work, or when we've worked on our mindset a little bit, maybe that is the time to make that decision. So maybe now isn't the right time. Maybe we've got a bit of work to do before we get to that point to make the decision, whether it's to give up our day job or invest in property or a person or whatever it happens to be. Maybe we do have a little bit of work to do, and then it will be the right time.
I think there's a whole other conversation to be had about the importance of learning to quiet your mind, to allow your truth to come through.
And it is hard when you've got small children, when you're working, when you've got so much going on. It is hard because we don't think that, or we assume there is no time to do it. Yeah, it's definitely worth doing. I know it's something that I've been working on lately, and it is transformational for sure. Long way to go, but it definitely does open up a whole new world, really.
We've all got a long way to go. We're all work in progress.
Yes, we are all a work in progress. It's very true. So, you've really enlightened us today. We've really dug behind, this subject of the subconscious, beliefs that we bring with us, the way we're almost programmed as children, and how we have to clear that, how we do carry some of those beliefs, how they hold us back, limit us, bring fear with them, but that there is a solution, which is such a positive thing, that there is a way out of this, and it will free us up to be able to do the things that at the moment those things that you can do. You've got all this potential, you're capable of doing something, but you just can't quite get there because you keep coming across these limiting beliefs. So there is a way out, which is fantastic, and you've really given us an insight into how we can get through that and get to the other side and have the adventure that's probably waiting for us on the other side. And it's all about a little bit of bravery, a little bit of time, a little bit of work on ourselves and finding the right people, isn't it? By surrounding ourselves with the right people, working with the right people so that we can allow this process to unfold for us. So tell us a little bit more about where we can find you, because I know that people are going to want to find out more about what you do because they've seen this little snippet and they're probably fascinated about how you work with people. So tell us more.
So people can send me a message on my email at denise@denisemortimer.com, or they can send me a message through my website, which is denisemortimer.com. So email or website would be absolutely fantastic. And I'd love to hear from anyone. I'd love to hear any takeaways that you have or any questions that you have surrounding the area of clearing subconscious blocks, particularly around money.
And where can we follow you online? Where can we see more of your message and see what you're up to?
Oh, find me on Facebook. I spend most of my days on Facebook. That's where I hang out.
Well, I'm going to be putting all those links into the show notes. So if anybody wants easy access to find out more about Denise, then I'll put those links in. And tell us about how you work with people and give us a story about how you've helped someone, a real life example.
Okay. I'll tell you a very quick story. So I had a lady named Anna who came to me, and she was really in a bad place. And she was like, I don't even think I'm going to be able to make any money this month. I don't know what's the matter with me. This was around COVID time. Like it was about 6 months into COVID. I don't know how I'm going to even make any money this month. And she already been in business. So she wasn't a newcomer. I just want to be clear that, she wasn't a newcomer to business. And we did one of these sessions, and the next day she messaged me. We cleared a lot. It's not for me to say what we cleared because it's confidential between myself and my client, but we cleared some big stuff from her past. She messaged me the next day and she's like, I'm aware it's a Saturday, but I just want you to know I had 2 clients reach out to me and I've closed £12,000 in sales. And this was a woman who said she didn't think she could make any money, because she was in such a bad way. And she felt so much lighter. It's not even about the money. It's about the lightness that you feel. It's about that peace you find within yourself. And she's one of hundreds of client testimonials with phenomenal results, because you can't put a price on feeling so good. It's just incredible.
That's what we all want, isn't it? It's nice to have all the material things, but it really is about how we want to feel.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Productivity for Profit podcast. And I hope you've enjoyed your time. You have shared so much insight, and I will see you all on the next episode of the Productivity for Profit podcast. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Productivity for Profit podcast. Why not join my free Facebook group, Productivity for Profit, for more tips, tools and support on your journey to mastering your productivity and time management. If you've enjoyed the podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. If you're juggling the demands of a service-based business helping your clients and all the other demands of life, then you're probably feeling pretty short of time. So this is just for you. I have a brand new course that helps you to save a minimum of an hour every day. What would you do with that extra hour? And how would that accumulate over a year? Would you make more money? Would you be more present with your family? Would you have more me time and prevent the burnout? Whatever you choose to do with that extra hour a day, we know that it's not just about what you do, but how you think. So this course is going to start with those quick wins of gaining you back some time, plugging the leaks, putting in the boundaries, but it's also going to help you to instill new beliefs that will allow you to make different choices. Because this is not just about quick wins, as good as they are, it's about long-term change and changing your life. So if this is something that you would like to know more about, then have a look in the show notes and find the link to the Save an Hour Every Day course.